The theories and ideas shared in this episode are based on publicly available information and are for the purpose of creative thought and entertainment. The topics we discuss are our own opinions and purely speculative. Our aim is to explore claims made by prominent individuals, verify them best as we can, and discuss their potential reality. We're just two regular dudes who are fascinated by this phenomena. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to the Rusty Saucer. How we doing today, Andrew?
Hey, doing great, Ross. Yeah, everybody, welcome back. Appreciate you being here.
Yep. So, wanted to go over real quick. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Thank you for liking the video. It really does help. Our engagement is past what we were expecting, just starting out. So, it's exciting to know that people find value in what we're talking about. And if you guys are enjoying, if this is your first time viewing our channel and you find this video interesting, entertaining, please like the video. It really does help. And please, come in, join, subscribe, and join us and let us know in the comments section your thoughts on things and any suggestions you may have for the channel.
Yeah, we really appreciate every one of our viewers, especially being a small channel and starting off. So it means the world to us if you hit that like button, leave a comment. We'll be happy to reply to you, no matter what you say down in the comments below. So thank you for being here and thank you for spreading the word and telling your friends and family.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're really excited. Last week we talked about David Grusch, or not David Grusch, I'm sorry. Last week we talked about Lou Elizondo. And so today we're going to talk about David Grusch. And David Grusch is interesting because he is the first one that started using the term non-human intelligence. And Elizondo did come out before David Grusch. Elizondo came out in 2017, but he was more reserved about what he was saying these things were in the sky and what was going on, where Grusch straight up said non-human intelligence. And some of the clips today that we're going to see are going to highlight that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the big thing to remember about Grush is he claims that he has never seen or interacted with anything paranormal or otherworldly. He has just been a top official who has been given reports of things that have happened to people that were under his direct command or in the military infrastructure. So he's not one to say, yeah, I saw a saucer, yeah, I saw a being. He's just saying, no, I've gotten reports of this. This information has been fed to me, or I've been able to look up things with my clearance and find out this information. And he does like to use the word, well, when he testified to Congress, which we'll go over later, he does like to say there's a lot of stuff that he's not allowed to say unless it's in a
Mm-hmm.
skiff, which is a secure environment where you can't be spied on or listened to. So it can get a little frustrating sometimes with him because he'll get asked direct questions, and his response will be, well, I could tell you that, but we'd have to be in a skiff. Oh, I can't comment on that unless we're in a skiff. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting. We make jokes, Ross and I, about that because there's certain things I can't tell Ross unless we're in a skiff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it can get frustrating at times, especially when we're trying to get to the juicy details of, okay, where did these things come from? um, where was this found? Who has the material now? And over again, he'll give you kind of the broad information, but then he'll stop and say, I'm sorry, I can't say that. I wish I could tell you. And you hear that a lot too. But
Yeah.
keep in mind that this is classified information. And if you do talk about classified information publicly, that is a big deal, and he could be sitting in prison the rest of his life.
Right, right. Nobody wants
So,
to do that.
no. So, don't be too hard on the guy. I just give him props for coming out. If what he is saying is true, I really do appreciate it because it's really blown the door open to a lot of very interesting topics. And we wouldn't be here if if he didn't come out, if he wasn't one of those people that started coming out and talking about this, because he brought a lot of legitimacy to this topic when he came and
Yeah,
testified to Congress.
yeah, and he was the main person that was testifying to Congress, right, Ross? Like I know there were other people there, like David Fravor, who we talked about in the past,
Right.
but it seems to be in most of the material that I've seen, it's Grush talking to Congress or addressing Congress.
Right. So there were three people. It was David Grusch was the headliner because he had the big statements, the bold statements of everybody wanted to hear him say non-human in front of Congress under oath. And so he was the front runner. And then he had David Fravor and another guy named Ryan Graves. And both Fravor and Graves are former U.S. Navy pilots.
Right, right. And
Hmm.
then Grush was just a high-ranking official. What program was he in again exactly? Do you
So
remember?
he was on the UAP task force. And
Okay,
again, for those people just joining us, UAP is the new word for UFO.
right,
It started out as unidentified aerial phenomena, but then they changed it to anomalous phenomena, which could mean sky, it could mean underwater. And so that's kind of an interesting way of describing it. That's the government's, the Pentagon, that is their word for, or acronym for, what is going on whenever we used to say UFO.
right.
So,
And one thing I'll never forget about David Grush, I'm not sure if our videos today will address this or not, was basically said not all of these encounters that people reported to him had some of them were malevolent, so some of
right,
these people got hurt, injured, possibly even killed. He doesn't go
right.
into the specifics on that, but he just says, yeah, these beings are malevolent in some aspects, so they are, that's scary. When I hear that word, it just makes me go, oh, well, that's not good for us.
Right, right. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm excited to dive in. Andrew and I both love clips, so a lot of this channel is going to be about us watching and commenting on the different clips that we bring up, just because of how interesting it all is.
Yeah, and it's one thing for us to sit here and tell you about something, but when we show you the actual evidence that we have seen and where we're getting the information, it just lets you know, okay, these guys aren't just pulling this out of thin air. This is why they're so interested and why they're talking about these things.
Right, and it's nice to see that person themselves talking in an interview setting and also in a congressional setting.
Yeah, that's a big one. Really big
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Hmm. Because again, like we were saying earlier, is if you lie under oath or if you talk about classified information, or reveal that on accident, there are big consequences for doing that. And so it does say a lot whenever somebody does, especially from the military, goes under oath in front of Congress. Because think about this too, when you speak under oath in a congressional meeting, you're spending taxpayer money to make that hearing happen and for legal action to be taken.
Right. So it's pretty serious if you're going to go before Congress and
Right.
testify.
Right. So I guess with that, I think that's a pretty good intro to old David Grush, and
Yep.
let's hop into these videos.
I'm excited. Let's go. So yeah, with David Grush, he first got on my radar back in 2023 when he started doing these interviews, right kind of as the pandemic was wrapping up in the news. And so that was around the time when people started saying, well, is this stuff coming out because it's false information to get our mind off of things?
Right.
So that's how I first heard about David Grush. And then I saw and listened to the whole Congress testimonial, and it was amazing. So
Right.
what about you, Ross? When did you hear about Grush?
Yeah, so I had just kind of started getting into the UFO topic. Originally, I wasn't that into it. I'd always kind of been into some supernatural stuff, and I found the idea of it kind of interesting, but I didn't really know if there was any validity to it. And it was actually after I listened to Fravor, who we covered in episode one, that it brought me more to like, okay, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on this and kind of see what happens. And then I still remember it. Rogan had mentioned Grush. He was talking to one of his guests, and he was like, "What do you think of this Grush guy?" And uh, just talking about how he used the word alien and non-human and stuff like that. And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what?"
Right. Yeah.
I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, this is a U.S. official. Like this is a guy that worked in the Pentagon for these programs." And then I was like, "Wait, wait, wait, wait. We've got an actual." Like guy ahead of a program in the Pentagon or somebody high up at least in the Pentagon, saying that these crafts are from non-human intelligence. And so then I immediately watched, I looked up Grush, I looked up this interview that we're about to look at with Ross Coulthart with News Nation. And from there, it has just been a deep rabbit hole for me because this is what it was Fravor introduced the topic more to me in a more serious manner, and then Grusch was like, okay, this guy's legit.
Yeah,
And there are more legit people that are coming out backing up this guy, and he's saying non-human.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's my little backstory with old David.
Before we even talked about the subject, I had seen the videos with Fravor and some of his interviews, but I think it was actually you who told me about the congressional hearing, and that's when I first heard Grush speak. So yeah,
Right.
and that was amazing to listen to. But yeah, so ahead of us right here, what we're about to play for you is a interview with Ross Coulthart in 2023 from News Nation. It's
Mhm.
brought to us by the UAP James, one of our favorite content people on X. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what's going on.
Right. And so all these clips, we're going to have the links in the description.
Yes.
And yeah, so this link is provided by UAP James, the clip from Ross's interview.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Yep.
Mhm.
Uh,
Of course.
so slight delay here.
Let's see. Let me just refresh this.
Television interview. Welcome. Have a seat. Maybe start off telling me your name and who you are.
My name is David Grusch. I came from a blue-collar family in Pittsburgh. I didn't have the money for college. Always admired people in uniform. And I've always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. 18 years ago, I got an Air Force scholarship for physics. I originally commissioned on active duty in the Air Force, served 14 years in the Air Force.
I look at this photograph, Dave, and I see a very proud officer.
I was getting promoted to captain when I was deployed.
And you still love your country, don't you?
Absolutely.
A career intelligence officer, Grusch spent time on the ground in Afghanistan and other places he can't mention before rotating back to Washington.
I was an intel officer for the U.S. for 14 years. My last position, which I left in April of 2023, I co-led the UAP portfolio for the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency, and some of the highest officials within the Department of Defense and Intelligence community used to call on me to advise them on some of the hardest target sets that the country had.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the US defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
And he says the most earth-shattering of those secrets were revealed after 2019, when he was invited to join the UAP task force.
You had the security classifications to go anywhere and ask anyone anything.
I had, based on my formal security clearance and multiple polygraphs, I had the ability to be read into any program that I needed. At one point in time, I was extremely highly cleared.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
You are alleging that the US government has been concealing the existence on this planet of alien life.
I would couch it as non-human intelligence, NHI, like we like to say in our language.
Why do you say that? Why do you say NHI?
I don't want to
non-human?
necessarily denote origin. I don't think we have all the data to say, oh, they're coming from a certain location, and I couch it as somebody who studied physics where maybe they're coming from a different physical dimension as described in quantum mechanics. We know there's extra dimensions due to high energy particle collisions, et cetera, and there's a theoretical framework to explain that, yeah.
Just let me cut to the quick though. You're saying there is an intelligent species engaging with this planet.
Yes, that's potentially extraterrestrial, yeah.
I speak for everybody sitting at home. That is a shock.
It was to me, and I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Grusch says he's never personally seen non-human intelligence, but he's spoken to enough people directly involved in what he calls the program that he's convinced it's real.
I started out as a non-believer. I came to the problem as a hardcore physics guy, intel officer, so I have a, excuse my language, high factor. I was very methodical, interviewing people who didn't know each other, making sure this wasn't some kind of cover-up of some other program.
He says he pressed to gain direct access to this program, and that's when his trouble started. Grusch claims his investigation was stymied, his requests for access rebuffed.
They shut the door in my face. They denied me access to these programs.
Soon after, he says, he endured reprisals and retaliation from above. He then reported that information to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. That's why he's filed this whistleblower complaint. He says that experience is why he decided to go public here and in a recent article written by Leslie Kane in The Debrief.
You're not being paid for this interview?
No, I'm not.
Why are you doing this?
It's a sense of service, Call me a Boy Scout or whatever. When I saw the kind of wrongdoing I did, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old in the future and have that, coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of feeling where I could have made a difference. I do not want to live a life of regret.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
You've said that the United States has spacecraft, intact craft.
We do.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Have you seen spacecraft?
I've seen some interesting photos and I've read some very interesting reports.
But, he says, the specific documents and photos that would prove his claims are still classified, and he cannot disclose them here.
Let's deal with the issue of your credibility. Why should we believe you? You're just somebody coming out of nowhere, making claims that we really ultimately can't prove.
Yeah. Well, we provided the proof internally to the Inspector General and the Hill staff, and we went into all the details. I mean, I have the credentials. I was an intelligence officer on the UAP task force.
But let's face it, allegations of aliens and their spacecraft are hard to accept, even coming from a respected insider. Even if you call them NHI and UAP, how could such NHI travel to Earth in the first place and go undetected by the general public? Grusch says the craft may not be travelling through space as we understand it.
It is a well-established fact, at least mathematically and based on empirical observation and analysis, that there most likely are physical additional spatial dimensions. And you could imagine in 4 and 5D space where what we experience as linear time ends up being a physical dimension in higher dimensional space, where if you were living there, you could translate across what we perceive as a linear flow. So there is a possibility that, and this is a theory here, I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but it could be that this is not necessarily extraterrestrial, and it's actually coming from a higher dimensional physical space that might be co-located, you know, right here.
What can you tell me about these craft, these technologies? Why do you know it's exotic?
Based on the very specific properties that I was briefed on, you know, isotopic ratios that would have to be engineered for it to be at those levels, but also just extremely strange, heavy atomic metal, you know, high up in the periodic table arrangements that we don't understand, you know, what the emergent properties are, but there's just a very strange mix of elements.
So you're absolutely sure that the materials that these craft are made of are clearly not of this earth?
Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans.
And while Grusch says the US has gleaned some insight from these materials for military use, so much more could be done if academia and the private sector had access.
It's totally nuts that humanity as a whole, especially, you know, the U.S. citizenry as a whole, they're not even benefiting from broad research on this to solve, you know, propulsion, energy issues, novel material science that can improve people's quality of life. It's just totally nuts how it's been protected and inhibits progress.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Coming up, how long has this been going on?
A lot of the things I was briefed on were very shocking.
Ooh, that was a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, first we heard how he, basically joined the military and then he got access to those programs and he became one of the members of the UAP task force. But then he was denied entry to actually look into these crash retrieval programs. So he knew they existed, but he was denied entry to actually see what they found, what they're about. But he
Right.
must have gleaned some information to have some of the info that he has about, non-human biologics and, the materials of these ships. So that's got to be really frustrating when you're a top ranking guy and you're in a program with the clearances that it needs to investigate these things, but you're denied access.
Right. No, it's wild hearing that. Just hearing him go off about how a lot of times he thought that he was being lied to or manipulated a little bit
Yeah,
by different people that were coming forward to him, that he was like, okay, all right, enough of this. But then as he saw the documentation and he looked more into it, he started getting pushback and he wasn't allowed to look further, being, steered to go away.
right. Yeah, but to be in charge of something already that top secret and then to be denied that crucial information has got to be just so frustrating. I mean,
Yeah. It looks like that he saw some things that he was like, this changes my whole worldview.
yeah,
I have to do something about this. Like, I have to tell the public, because here's the thing: when you take an oath to the military and to serve for the purpose of, protecting the country and all that, there's a respect for classified information, but there's also, you're making an oath to the people that you're protecting. And I think that a lot of these whistleblowers are struggling with that whole, we're going to respect the classified element of this, but we're also going to speak out and say, as people that are defending the American public, we want to be able to be transparent with the fact that there is information out there that can change the way of life and change what we understand about our place in the universe, and how the universe, um, how it's built and how it functions.
yeah, it gave me chills when he said, we are not alone. and he said it,
Right.
with just such what's the word I'm looking for?
Certainty.
Yeah, certainty, exactly. Yeah, he's just, we are not alone. We've been visited multiple times by, non-human. He's not saying, oh yeah, it's for sure aliens, but as far as he's aware,
Right.
it's non-humans. I do like his
Right.
theory about alternative dimensions, because if there was something from an alternative dimension, it would explain a lot of why these things are so mysterious to us and how they can travel through the vast space, the vast, or the vast universe, and through space, whereas we can't get very far with our current technology. They can cover these vast distances. That's what I was looking to say.
Hmm.
If they were in another dimension, yeah, certain things they could do would just be unexplainable to us.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, and also I think that he's getting at that um, the track from there to here isn't linear,
Right.
and that there's different types of means for propulsion that are beyond what we're capable of doing. Where I don't think that it's just a straight line, going from here to here, from going
Right.
A to B, if you will. There's a way that you can kind of fold and kind of cross dimensions, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not a physicist, so I don't know. Maybe I'm completely saying that wrong,
Right.
but
Well,
it just sounds like that once you get to a certain type of technology, that you can kind of manipulate it where it's not that one track way.
yeah, it goes back to that old movie, Event Horizon, where he explains it, for just people that aren't aware. But if you've got point A over here and point B there, and the only
Oh,
way
here
we
we
know to
go.
get there is a straight line, if you knew where to fold space, boom, you
Yep.
put point A and point B together.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was an
yeah. That's
example
what
of the
I was
paper
saying,
towel, but yeah, yeah.
That's what I was trying to
But
say.
but yeah, amazing movie too, Event Horizon. Scary, so just warning. But yeah, they basically summarize wormholes and how they were using them to
Right.
travel fast distances in space. So, but yeah, that video was really cool. Hearing Fravor say all, excuse me, not Fravor, hearing Grush say all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. I know it was a long video. It was a lot to unpack, and this also kind of goes into the whistleblower topic. A lot of people are questioning whether Grush is a whistleblower because, as you could see, there were parts where they were saying, "Oh, Grush can't share this. He toured this area, and this area in the military, along with others that we cannot discuss."
Hmm.
And the documentation he can't provide to prove his claim. And here's the thing about being a whistleblower: a whistleblower does not mean that you come out and you expose everything publicly. A whistleblower can still be, you can still be a whistleblower if you go to the authorities about any type of wrongdoing, alleging alleged illegal activity. It doesn't have to be made public to be a whistleblower.
Right.
So technically, he is still a whistleblower because he is going to the authorities and reporting to the inspector general about what is going on, the information that's being kept from the public, and even retaliation against himself. So just wanted to put that out there, that anybody that says that he's not a whistleblower and is being harsh on him for not releasing classified information needs to chill. Because like he is doing a lot. He's putting his career, he's putting his career out there, and you know it's not really a career builder to do this.
Yeah.
And he's really doing a service to people if what he's saying is true, that this stuff could, the information that agencies within our government have, could modify and even help our way of life today.
Well, yeah, just like Fravor, Grush is not trying to monetize. He's not writing books, he's not making movies, he's not trying to profit off of what he's telling us. He's just trying to provide the public as much information as he legally can without getting in trouble. So yeah.
Right. And to my knowledge, he hasn't done any interviews in 2024. He did a few interviews in 2023. Um, and I'm sure he has made some money from this. Whenever you go on some of these shows, you're going to make money from it. But he's not the type of person that he is all over the place all the time, just his face is everywhere and this is just his topic. He went out there, he put the information out, and he's kind of stepped away from it and gone more behind the scenes, which really does say a lot about
Yeah.
who he is. And I think you can tell from just watching this, and this is why we show these clips. You have to see the guy yourself. You have to see him interacting and you have to see him talking. And to me, he looks like a genuine guy. He cares about people. You can just tell, whenever he said call him a Boy Scout, call him whatever, he cares about community. He cares about being transparent with the world and all of that. So to me, just watching him talk and stuff, I personally think that he's a very genuine person. And I'm very interested whenever he's talking.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go to the next one.
On to the next. So this next video is just continuing on from that first News Nation interview. Once again, this is brought to us by UAP James on X. So let's check it out.
Footage captured by naval aviators on military-grade cameras that defied all prosaic explanation. Dave Grusch has investigated this one, shot in 2015 off the East Coast by fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt.
There's an industry of debunkers out there on the web who say, oh, they've got this all wrong, it's a jet exhaust at a distance and the aircraft's turning. Give me an answer on that.
I had some optical engineering experts look at that and the Raytheon AT FLIR system based on the pixel saturation and apparent size. It's certainly something that's not a jet. It might be some kind of natural phenomenon that's quite strange, but it's not as simple as a jet.
He has even stronger opinions about this UAP, now known to history as the Tic Tac, shot in 2004 in the Pacific by aviators off the USS Nimitz.
And the Tic Tac?
Truly anomalous, absolutely technical vehicle, physical, and that's absolutely something that we didn't make.
Not of this world.
Most likely, yeah.
The videos were leaked in 2017, then officially released by the Pentagon in 2020. At the time, it seemed the Pentagon may have finally abandoned its obsession with secrecy and decided to do what other countries have been doing for decades: establish a properly funded, publicly accountable team to investigate reports of UAP. Dave Grusch was part of that team.
This is a hunt mission for what might somebody be doing in our backyard that we don't know about.
The task force set about investigating these incidents, including more recent events like the odd encounters that took place during naval exercises in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. This video, shot on the USS Omaha and later leaked to documentarian Jeremy Corbell, has received particular attention.
It either zooms off so fast you can't see it or it sinks into the ocean, but it seems to drop. What do you know about it?
It was truly anomalous.
But Grusch says the promised new age of government transparency is a fallacy. For starters, he says the videos that have been released are just the tip of the iceberg.
There are many videos that are totally fair to release through a declassification process. And I find it very concerning from a transparency perspective that all that the department has declassified were those 3 famous videos. There are more concerning videos that left me with a lot of questions, yeah.
He says there are credible witnesses who could testify to Congress about spacecraft, big spacecraft.
A lot of them were very large, yeah. Like a football field kind of size. And I remember interviewing these personnel. I'm like, either these people are lying to me, they're having a psychotic break, or this is some crazy but true stuff that's happening, and I have no good explanation that's prosaic at all for this, because this is not explainable by, swamp gas, St. Elmo's fire, ball lightning, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is like tangible technical craft they're seeing up close and personal in some cases when I interview people.
And at the centre of it all, the crash retrieval program the government has never publicly acknowledged. A program, Grusch says, that's included at least one private aerospace company that is storing alien craft.
Is that true?
That is how a lot of these relationships are. While I don't want to name the specific companies and government elements, but overall, the government has been the custodian of a lot of this, right? And they'll hand receipt it out to a cleared defense contractor to do some analysis, which I find highly unethical. You have basically a sole source arrangement, and you allow certain private corporate elements to look at this, develop a potential insight, and then sell it back to the government for profit. And I think that's totally unethical.
The problem you've got is there have been categorical denials from high-level officials in the US government, even presidents, that what you're saying is true.
Unfortunately, some elected officials were not brought in.
Only a few weeks ago, 19th of April, the head of the Pentagon's UAP investigations program, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, told Congress AARO, that's the Pentagon's UFO investigation body, has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics.
While a large number of cases in our holdings remain technically unresolved, this is primarily due to a lack of data associated with those cases.
Was that a lie?
Well, I know Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I've known him for about 8 years. And, I expressed some concerns to Dr. Kirkpatrick about a year ago and told him what I was starting to uncover. And he didn't follow up with me. And he has my phone number. He could have called me. I hope he ultimately does the right thing. He should be able to make the same investigative discoveries I did. It's totally crazy if he doesn't.
So the implication here is that the head of the very body that Congress has ordered to tell the American public the truth about UAPs is possibly misleading the American public. Do you think the American public is being lied to?
Well, they've been lied to over the years, and I'm hoping that the lies stop.
Coming up, it gets even scarier. The UFO whistleblower says the NHIs aren't all friendly.
Have human beings been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
And guess who they might be working with?
We're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this, and it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose for so long.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack on that one too. So one thing that's interesting is how a lot of these, recordings from these military craft have taken place on the West Coast. So what's going on? Is there something about the West Coast that they're seeing more activity? And he spoke about David Fravor's incident, the Tic Tac, and we saw video footage. I don't think the other week we showed any video footage of that particular incident, but you can go and find it online. It's there. So yeah, that was really cool to see the actual video in this clip. I think you're muted, Ross.
I'm back.
Hey, welcome back.
Thank you. To kind of piggyback off of what you were saying about the West Coast, that is interesting. Something that was mentioned too was how the general public, this might have been from the other video, but how can these things come into view or come into our atmosphere without the general public noticing them? That was kind of his stance. And then you just said that a lot of these crafts have been seen in the West Coast. So these are around military facilities. And I've said this before, but military facilities are going to have the top of the line sensors where they're going to notice if somebody comes into their airspace. And these airspaces, they don't want our adversaries going in there and seeing what we're doing. They don't want infiltration from anybody, not even aliens, and so it does make sense that in these military areas that they are going to be spotting these things.
Yeah. I also like the idea that there's a private company that's harboring these crafts, you know. So is that Lockheed Martin, Boeing, you know, one of these big defense contracting companies that's, you
Right.
know, basically reverse engineering some of this stuff, you know,
Right.
potentially. Are we using technology currently that got reverse engineered? Who knows?
Right.
Maybe, you know, it's really cool to think. And then the other big thing he brought up was, you know, elected officials not being brought in. And kind of
Mhm.
like what Elizondo was telling us in last week's episode is, you know, some of these branches in the government are these secret organization or project leaders think, well, why should we tell an elected official they're in for short term, whereas we're here for the long haul, you know?
Right.
So I thought those were really interesting points.
Right. And that's the thing is like it's such an excuse to say that because our government is supposed to be elected officials.
Yeah. I mean,
And
you could see why they do it, but it's not a good thing to do.
right. And that's the thing is like that's just putting the power into unelected officials. If you want people representing the American people, the elected officials should be the ones that have access to this so that they can make better decisions.
Yeah.
If they don't know how our universe works and that there's these beings that may be malevolent or whatever, why how can they make the best decisions for, oh, we need to go and take this path versus this path? You know, they need to know this stuff. They need to know who our adversaries are, who our friends are. And there's just a lot of stuff that it's like, man, if this is true, why do our elected officials, like you brought up, why are they not, briefed on this?
Right. It's scary to think that the person running the country potentially that's supposed to look out for our best interests doesn't know about maybe some of
Exactly.
our biggest threats.
Exactly. Well put. And another thing that he mentioned too was that they have clearer videos. So these grainy videos that we got released to us that you can barely see what's happening, um, those are like the least compelling of what he has seen. And I mean to say that you've seen a craft the size of a football field.
Right.
Golly.
Yeah. And
What?
he did kind of say like, "Oh yeah, it's nice that they've released these videos, but you know, that it seems like a drop in the bucket compared to what he's seen or says that they have, you know." So
Right.
to him, it's not really all that great that they've only released these when they're holding back so much more.
Right. And and that's where I was where he mentioned the whole I don't see how the general public doesn't see these things. That's where I was before I saw Fravor and then Grush is I was on that whole I didn't take it very seriously because it's like how would the general public not notice this? Like the general public has sensors too. They have satellites, they have all of these different devices. They are looking up into the sky and so for me, that was hard for me to really wrap my head around. And especially when you hear that these crafts are the size of football fields on, that's wild.
Right.
So really
Well,
big claims.
one of the things too that I've heard is that you know pilots, just you know passenger airplane pilots, have seen certain things, but you know in the past, if they were to disclose to any of their employers, they were labeled as okay, this guy maybe is drinking on the job or
Yep.
he's losing his sanity.
Yep.
So they were way too scared. But recently, there have been more ways for them to disclose what they've seen and actually put their story out there because it's being taken more as a matter of you know national defense than it is just, you know, okay, this guy's an outlandish story.
Right, right. Yeah, let's give this guy a break, let's send him on some time off,
Yes, yeah, that's
And
exactly what
then
they're afraid
yeah,
of.
and then the next employer is looking and they're like, "It looks like you had to take some time off. What was this about?"
Yeah, yeah. Good luck explaining that. And you know, I mean, the human brain sure is capable of creating all sorts of illusions, and you know, but
It
when
is.
we still need to have a way to disclose things that you see without being labeled as just a crazy person, or you know, or being in fear of losing your job. So, yeah.
Right. That's another thing is he's very clear about that these are not hallucinations. These he brought up the swamp gas and
Hmm.
other things that could influence hallucinations. He's like this is backed up by sensor data too.
Yeah.
And that's where this is crazy. It's just, man, if we could only see that classified data. And he's going on and saying, like, this is not something that should be classified. and he finds it unethical. And that's where the
Right.
whistleblower part comes out, and why he's standing up, and why it's important to really realize that, hey, this guy is a patriot. He is looking for he's looking for the best for the people that he has sworn to protect.
Right.
And to me, I I respect that. And again, I respect Grush for this, and I'm never going to dog him for this. Now, if it comes out that, like, this was all made up and this was all BS, then that's different. But if this is true, if there's even a chance that this is true, look into it, because he's got a lot of credible people backing him up nowadays, of the positions he held, the security clearances that he had, and how high he was cleared. That Carl Nell video, Colonel Carl Nell, that we watched on the Lou Elizondo um, discussion last week, he said that Grush was cleared to presidential level um, classification. And so, I mean, he's seeing a lot. Andrew, I also wanted to ask you, did you kind of see his reaction whenever Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was being talked about? Sean Kirkpatrick was the guy
Yes.
head of Arrow, and he was testifying in Congress saying there's no evidence. Did you see Grush's reaction, kind of facial features, as Coldheart was asking him about Kirkpatrick? I kind of wanted to see what you thought on that.
Yeah, he even
Kind
threw
of
him a
looked like they
little
had some beef,
he
you
threw him a little
know?
jab saying, "Look, the guy's got my phone number and he hasn't used it," you know? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely was aware of that.
It did
Yeah.
look like they had some beef. And
Yeah.
there has been some FOIAs in the last this year, which is Freedom of Information Act for those that don't know, um, of this interaction between Grush and Kirkpatrick. And they do have a history that it appears that they did not get along with one another, that Kirkpatrick's actually had been trying to get in contact with Grush. However, Grush kept letting Kirkpatrick know that, hey, you're not cleared to see this information, so I can't show it to you. Call me whenever you can see this. And
Mm,
apparently, Kirkpatrick never even got the clearance to actually see some of this documentation that Grush has access to, which is another thing muddying the waters. Is you've got a guy like Kirkpatrick representing um, this agency that is doing this investigation and claiming that they have no evidence, but they're not cleared to
right.
see some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true. And at the
mhm,
end of the day, too, we've always got to keep in mind that, Grush believes in what he's saying, what he's seen, but there is that chance that everything he's being fed is misinformation. I mean,
right,
that it's a
right,
psyop. I mean, that is still a possibility. So we don't want to say,
right,
that everything he says is Bible or that it's for certain.
hmm,
So yeah, just keep that in mind as well, too, I guess.
right. Yeah, and it does seem that a lot of what his evidence is people within the government.
Yeah.
So these aren't just like somebody you collect from the street and was like, hey, I was out walking last night, I was walking my dog, and I looked up and this spaceship came and landed, and these beings came out and started greeting me and talking to me. I'm sure he probably did do some investigations with people outside of government, but it sounds like that these people were within the government and within these special programs and agencies that he is talking about as his witnesses and as the people that are giving him this information.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to see a fraction of what he's seen, though. That'd be
I know,
that'd be
right?
really interesting.
Right.